forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack make it backflip. Telly Hank it with the action. With the Vato speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby Maine. Just caught a touchdown from the Bay.
He was a drug dealer, but he would rob drug dealers and take their drugs and give them to other people. But mostly what he was he's a hitman. There was a group of about 12 core guys, and he was in charge of them. And they would have, drug dealers would hire them to kill other drug dealers.
Unsolved homicides are a big priority for Central Ohio police departments, and now Crime Stoppers is adding billboards and starting a door hanger initiative to bring more awareness to them.
The goal here is to get justice for victims' families.
These billboards are hoping to bring some closure to families still waiting for answers after losing a loved one to homicide.
We're kicking off this billboard campaign to spotlight unsolved homicides, that hopefully someone will see it and recall that piece of the puzzle, that vital tip that will bring an arrest and closure for the victim's families.
Homicide scenes like this have become far too common in Columbus, and many of these cases remain unsolved. Now, Columbus police have a new way for you to help. Good evening. Thanks for joining us at 11. I'm Andrew Kinsey.
And I'm Yolanda Harris. Now, it is a new webpage dedicated to unsolved homicides. As Crime Tracker 10's Lacey Crisp explains, police are hoping you'll help give them information they need to solve these cases.
The city of Columbus, Ohio, has made headlines in 2024 with a homicide clearance rate of 78%, a number that stands 20% above the national average. For a city with 900,000 residents, it's a sign of progress, but progress born out of necessity. It wasn't long ago that Columbus was buried under a wave of violence where justice was rare and the weight of unsolved murders suffocated entire neighborhoods. And to understand this moment, you gotta look back at the shadows that still linger, like the 1990s, for instance, where the clearance rate was a dismal 61.25%, leaving too many murders unsolved and too many families without answers. And by 2020, the rate would drop even more, to a grim 49%. It was like for every life taken, the odds of finding justice was just as good as a flip of a coin. And certain parts of the city will become known as no arrest zones, or areas where clusters of murders went cold and silence became normal. And families in these neighborhoods waited, but not for answers though, but for the grim reality that no one was coming to help. And even now, to this day, as the city celebrates progress, those no arrest zones remain haunted by the weight of their history, and many murders tied to individuals and groups that once unleashed terror across Columbus are still unsolved.
With growing concern over Columbus's murder rate, 10 investigators found parts of the city where murders consistently go unsolved.
I just pray that, we don't lose no more, of our young people. This is crazy.
Look no further than just above the tree lines to spot what we are talking about. We found more than a dozen areas of the city where unsolved homicides have been clustered together, where killings are common but arrests are few. We call them dead zones or no-arrest deserts, and they span from the North End to North Linden to a South Side apartment complex and the Hilltop, where unsolved murders are sprinkled from block to block. This map shows every murder in Columbus since 2017. The red dots represent unsolved cases. The blue are those cleared by arrests. With more than 650 homicides over the past 5 years, police have made arrests in a little more than 1 out of every 2.
During the trial of the State versus Leon Collins in the Franklin County courtroom, Testimony would shed light on the violent activities of a group known as the X-Clan, a gang that would terrorize Columbus, Ohio during the 1990s. Leon Collins, who was charged with aggravated battery, attempted aggravated murder, and attempted aggravated murder, would be tied to a series of violent acts connected to the gang. Central to this narrative would be another Columbus, Ohio native by the name of Ronald Dawson, who would be identified during said testimony as the leader of the X-Clan. At the time of Collins' trial, Dawson was already serving his own life sentence on an aggravated murder charge stemming from a shooting 6 years prior on April 18, 1994. Witnesses, including law enforcement officers and former gang members, described Dawson as the orchestrator of the X-Clan's operations, controlling territories across Columbus and commanding acts of violence that left entire neighborhoods gripped with fear. The gang's reputation for ruthlessness and its stronghold over certain neighborhoods had earned them the status among law enforcement, who identified them as one of the most significant threats to public safety at the time.
I mean, yeah, there's some scary people that, I've prosecuted in some big cases, both in the state and the federal system. Ronald Dawson was probably the first real big case that I did where I was really concerned if I failed, that people would be hurt and killed. And that was a group called the X-Clan. It was an enterprise that did murders for hires, mostly for other.
In the central Ohio area.
In Columbus, yeah. And that was a scary one because I realized, we got to win. Our witnesses are in jeopardy, and other people that cooperate are in jeopardy, and we have to completely wipe out that enterprise. And we were fortunate that we were able to, but it was tough.
Now, it was tough for you too personally because you ended up getting chased down the freeway at one point during this case.
Yeah, that made it a little tougher. But yeah, I did, and we had great protection with SWAT and the ATF, FBI, and Columbus Police. Really took care of me and my family, as well as Doug Stead, who was my co-counsel during that case. So I felt very protected. So did my family for a good year when it was going on.
And this was a case from what time period?
This would have been really kind of 98 to 2000. Violent crime's a big problem, and not just Columbus, but Cincinnati and Dayton. And Columbus was huge.
That's fine. One particular case in about 1999 struck close to home for DeVillers. It involved this man, Ronald Dawson, who led the X-Clan gang.
It's called the X-Clan. And they were in Bolivar Arms. Do you know where that used to be? So that's kind of where they grew up. And the guy looks kind of like Mike Tyson's got a scar. He's got greatest quotes in the world. Like one is, "I never killed a taxpayer." And he's right. He never did. Well, actually, he did. He missed. He hit this lady once. And then another one was, "Some people just need a good killing." And these are his quotes.
Who did he tell that to?
I think he told that, "I never killed a taxpayer," told a cop when he was arrested. But you got to look up the stuff that Kevin Mayhood did on this guy. It is amazing. I mean, the stuff he talked about, and it was. I think this would have been like 99, 2000, like when the investigation's going on. But it was one of the weirdest things. He knew we were investigating him. He was out on the streets. He was actively kind of messing with people, trying to use them. Like Kevin did a good job, did a great job. But even he'll tell you, I think Kevin wrote a book on it that I don't know if it ever got published, but he was a drug dealer, but he would rob drug dealers and take their drugs and give them to other people. But mostly what he was he's a hitman. There was a group of about 12 core guys, and he was in charge of them. And they would have, drug dealers would hire them to kill other drug dealers or people or witnesses. And that's what he did. I can't think of it. There one, the first, I think, murders we prosecuted where these two guys was trying to kill this guy. I got his name is Rick Turner or something. And they shot him like 9 times, but the bullet like went through his face and into this lady's head who shot her once. She's dead, completely innocent. They were on like a date. This guy, was complete dirt, gets just 9 times and lives. And he was such a dick. Eventually, he ended up testifying but he was like, I ain't fucking testifying. I'm like, you're a dead man. You guys got to protect me now. I'm like, no, if you're not cooperating, what are we supposed to do? So he ended up cooperating. But I remember like being in, like, this is long after he was shot, being in interviewing him at the hospital, and he's eating like cereal. I forgot, it was Ed Calais was a homicide detective, and it was ATF and FBI, and it was a big group of people, and he's sitting there eating the cereal, and the milk is coming out of here because he's got this hole, in his, from being shot. And he's such a dick too. He's like, I'm not quite. But in the end, he did.
And between October of 1991 and June of 1999, bodies begin to pop up on the east side of Columbus, confined to a chillingly small radius, with Interstate 670 to the north, Livingston Avenue to the south, Interstate 71 to the west, and Nelson Road to the east. All 13 victims, mostly men, were gunned down in this specific area, each death linked by proximity, brutality, and the unspoken terror that gripped the east side during this time. The police, overwhelmed and cautious with their words, whispered suspicions of gang involvement, and the name at the heart of the nightmare, Ronald Dawson, a shadowy figure leading a group known as the X-Clan. Now, unlike the popular rap group around this same time that shared the same name, that was known for wearing African medallions, promoted Afrocentric pride, cultural unity, and enlightenment, Ronald Dawson's X-Clan, though they might have wore the African medallions because that shit was popular at that time, spread an entirely different message, one of fear, violence, and destruction. While the hip-hop group encouraged communities to embrace knowledge, heritage, and empowerment, according to law enforcement, the Columbus X-Clan fractured neighborhoods, leaving a trail of blood and devastation. Under Dawson's leadership, this group thrived on intimidation and control, their name becoming synonymous with terror in the city's most vulnerable areas. The murders would begin with a guy by the name of Martin Williams in October of 1991, when he was shot as he walked from a bar on East Main Street. It would seem random, but the killings wouldn't stop. And by 1994, when James McKinney was gunned down during a home invasion at 1926 Maryland Avenue, a crime for which Ronald Dawson would later be convicted and sentenced to life in prison for. But even behind bars, the seed that he planted would grow, and the X-Clan would carry on, claiming new victims in drive-by shootings, ambushes, and robberies, each one bearing the unmistakable mark of calculated violence. And one of the most infamous incidents that would be associated with the group would occur on June 11th, 1999, right outside of Frank's Place, a bar on Mount Vernon Avenue, when a guy by the name of Mark Newton and his companion for the night, a female by the name of Naomi Conley, were ambushed as they sat in a parked car. Conley was killed instantly, and Newton, the assumed target, barely survived, riddled with bullets. Witnesses at the scene would later testify that Dawson had been spotted inside the bar earlier that night, speaking to his associates and alleged fellow X-Clan members, Sean Collins and Darrell Bell. The two men would be convicted of the crime, but it was only one of many attributed to the notorious X-Clan. And by 1999, the Columbus Police Department would publicly admit what many had already feared, that at least 13 murders spanning 8 years were likely connected. The victims were all shot, many during robberies or drug-related confrontations, and several killings involved multiple gunmen. Authorities will believe that the connection to the X-Clan was undeniable, though details remained frustratingly elusive. Fear ruled the streets, silencing witnesses and paralyzing investigations. The police would offer rewards and witness relocation programs, but few would dare to step up. The X-Clan would thrive and pretty much birth these areas described as no-arrest zones. Just like I explained earlier, where crimes would go unsolved and justice just felt unreachable. And it seemed like under Ronald Dawson's leadership, it ensured silence, both within the gang and the communities they terrorized. Towards the end of their reign, law enforcement would call X-Clan one of the most significant threats to public safety in Columbus's history. But dismantling the network proved an uphill battle, even as key members like Ronald Dawson, Sean Collins, and Darrell Bell were convicted. The scars they left behind on Columbus could never heal. And I don't really know why, but this just remind me of that DJ Quick shit. Columbus is just like Compton, nigga. Now, y'all know this the time where if we got anybody tapped in Columbus, matter of fact, if y'all in the state of Ohio, I need y'all to tap in below. But definitely if you in the CO or you was in the CO and survived this time, y'all head downstairs with them stories. And it's one thing I learned about covering this mob tie shit. Though it's a lot of drug kingpins coming home right now, I believe there's a list of just some people that the laws ain't ever gonna try to let out. Like the big man in Chicago, Lee Lucas, and unfortunately, I think Ronald Dawson is one of those people. Now, y'all make sure y'all hit the red bell and subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real trill spill shit is dropping. Y'all definitely tap in that comment box below for your ace. Y'all let me know what cities y'all tapping in from, what we got wrong, what we missed, what we need to cover, where we need to head next, all of that. Y'all make sure y'all hit me directly, Instagram, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And until the next play, y'all know how we rocking. Chase Popalot. Salute the almighty mob.